It has never gone any farther. Okay, go to the next slide if you would, please. Oh, you mentioned, I think I got the quote right, that that I always say dogs produce dogs, and you say that dogs producing non-dogs is not predicted by evolution. Well then, Stefan, do you believe there are dogs in the world? I think I can answer for you. Yes, you would say there are dogs. Okay. Do you believe they came from something long ago and far away, as long back as you want to go? Did they come from something that everybody would agree is a non-dog, like a bacteria? You believe bacteria slowly turned into dogs, do hundreds and thousands and millions of steps. But now, you're kind of confusing, muddying the water here. By saying a dog will not produce a non-dog, you're kind of implying, well, the dog kind is dead-ended. It made it to dog, and now we're not ever going to ever see a dog produce a non-dog. But if you wind the clock backwards, you do believe that dogs came from something that was non-dog. So instead of looking at it going forward, dogs producing non-dogs, let's go backwards. Did dogs come from a non-dog? And I think I can answer for you, yes, you believe they did. And then I would say, that's not science. It's a religious belief. You're breathing into the microphone, I think, there's nothing. To confirm a theory, make precise predictions. Okay, no, that's from the previous slide. My notes are, I did make a precise prediction based on God's word. God said 10 times in the first chapter of Genesis, they will always bring forth after their kind. It's repeated 10 times in the flood story, Genesis chapter 6 and 7. They always bring forth after their kind. Plants do it, animals do it, bacteria do it. There are no exceptions. Straw man argument here. We should not expect to see a dog produce a non-dog. Again, I'm pointing out that you're looking at it going forward in time. If you go backward, this is exactly what you do believe. I wish you'd see yourself in the mirror and admit that. You do believe that. Go one more slide, if you would. Okay, you have lined up letters representing the CATG, the different parts of the genetic code, pointing out that little bitty changes indicate a different Canis lupus, and different from Canis domesticus, Canis augustus, etc. I agree. There are differences in the genetic code, and somebody has lined up all these letters and pointed out that the within the species, they're 91% identical, and reading your second line, within the genus, they're 86% identical. I wrote down a sentence here, Stefan. I hope you'll understand this here. Here's my sentence, and don't take it for reality that I'm going to actually do this, okay? This is a sentence. I want you to know it has about 54 letters and spaces and commas and periods. Stefan, comma, next week I will give you $1 million, period. That's going to, quote and end quote. Just by a quick count, about 54 letters. So here's the sentence. Stefan, next week I will give you $1 million. Let me say that sentence again, changing one letter, less than 2% change. Stefan, next week I will give you $1 billion. I have changed one letter and have radically changed the meaning of the sentence by 1,000 times to go from $1 million to $1 billion. Let's try it again. Stefan, next week I will give you $1 trillion. Well, now I've changed one letter and introduced one more letter. One little tiny change in a sentence I made up in a few seconds is radically different, less than 2% change. So these little bitty changes that people like you like to line up on paper here and say, wow, look at how many similarities there are in the order of sequence. You have to understand, changing one letter in a sentence can radically, completely change the meaning of the sentence. Let me do it one more time. Stefan, next week, I will not give you $1 billion. Now I've added 3 letters and completely reversed the meaning of the sentence. So the DNA code of each of the animals may have some similarities. You may be able to line up the DNA code of a tomato and an elephant and find certain lines of code that are very, very similar. You may find the pattern to be similar. Okay, that does not prove a common ancestor. That proves a common designer. The same guy wrote the code. I think I could line up the letters or the code for Microsoft PowerPoint and line it up right next to Microsoft Word and find tens of thousands, maybe even millions of identical lines of code. That's proof the same people are writing the code. This is not proof that they all evolved from Morse code or something else. So, Stefan, I wish you could see that. Lining up the letters of the DNA of different creatures, and therefore making a conclusion as far as how closely they are related, and therefore making a chart and a graph and drawing lines between it. That's nonsense. I could do that with letters of the alphabet if I had time and interest. I did that once years ago. I changed a cat to a cot to a dot to a dog by changing one letter at a time. There's a difference between a cat and a dog. A lot of differences. There's certainly a difference between a cat and a cot, which you sleep on, but it's only one letter difference. So these little one letter differences, you guys like to point out all the similarities, and you're missing the point completely that these similarities are evidence of a common designer. I'd like to introduce you to him, Stefan. God made the world in 6 days. That's the only way it works, with plants and animals requiring each other for many things: pollination, eating, reciprocating gases. And God that made the world died on the cross to pay for your sins. He wants you to become one of his children, and so do I. Now, he probably loves you more than I do. I've never met you, but I'll try. I suspect, though, that you are using your great intellect, and you certainly are a very intelligent man. I suspect that you're using that, though, to spread the teaching to other people, like your students. Maybe not so much in math class, I hope not. But you're teaching your students that you believe in evolution, and you may be harming some of your 17 to 19-year-old students in their quest to find the true God of the universe. Jesus said, if you offend one of these little ones, you're going to be better off with a millstone hanged about your neck. So I think I'd be the best friend you had if I told you you're on dangerous ground if you're teaching this to other people. You're teaching evolution. Even if you sincerely believe it, you shouldn't teach that, because it's going to destroy some child's faith. Read Matthew chapter 18 and see what Jesus said about that. I'm here to warn you. Watch our YouTube channel, Kent Hovind Official, where every night I go through some verses from the Bible on this topic. And on my website, drdino.com, there's a section in there, how to be saved, how to give your heart to the Lord and become one of his children. I'd love to see you do that. Okay, Stefan, we're out of time. Thank you so much. Is there any final comments you wanted to make?
Well, I would really like to comment a little on this slide we have here, because I am absolutely positively sure that you will agree that within the species wolf, the differences and identity is due to common descent. Within the genus Canis, the differences and identity is due to common descent. It is due to the wolf and the jackal within the genus Lupus the genus Canis having the same ancestor. So what you are saying is that there is some mysterious thing going on. First, we had identity referring to common ancestry. Next line, we have identity referring to common ancestry. Next line, we have identity suddenly not referring to common ancestry. That makes absolutely no sense, no whatsoever. And the ATPH gene has exactly the same function in all these species. It is not change of function. It is only change of sequence of amino acids. Now, you asked me to conclude. Do I have a conclusion thing? I think it's the number 40. Just a second. Concluding remarks. Well, you want to stop this. This is okay. I have tons of examples of new genetic information, beneficial mutations, and things like that. I showed you some of that in our latest debate in September, and you actually accepted that some of the examples were actually showing that new proteins were produced in some of these species. That is what you said in our debate in September, that you accepted that new genes could actually pop into existence out of absolutely nowhere. But apparently we can really never get to the bottom of this. So instead, if we are going to do another debate, I would love to show people how you misunderstand evolution. Okay. I have collected quite a number of examples where you will really have to explain why this is not a completely misunderstanding of evolution. I would love to have such a debate with you, but I don't know if you can arrange that. But that would be nice. In this and our previous debate, we have seen. Well, I haven't gone through all that I wanted, so
okay, we'll do another one. We can do another one, no problem.
Really correct to say that I have shown these things, but I will put the entire slideshow into my webpage. Just go back to the first here. This creation versus evolution, and if you follow biology and follow Hovind, then the slideshow will be there, and there will be a number of different examples where I show that beneficial mutations do occur, and accumulation of genetic information do accumulate in the various organisms.
Okay.
So that's more or less it. My contact address is there, and the link to the previous debates is there, and my webpage. Yeah.
Okay, for those that may only get this on audio, let me read this. The contact is STFR for Stefan Frello, STFR@hotmail.com.
Yeah.
And they can get anything you'd like there. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Stefan, for doing this. It's been, what, 3 times now? It'll probably take about 3 more to get you converted, but I'm persistent. I would like to point out one thing, since you gave rebuttal a little bit about the lines of code. I think we could point out that Microsoft Word and Microsoft PowerPoint have a lot of similarities. They probably go to the identical spell check dictionary. I think if I'm in PowerPoint and click spell check, it'll take me to the exact dictionary that it does when I'm typing in Microsoft Word. However, if I was using an Apple computer, written with completely different people involved and completely different, sometimes I don't know how that Apple works compared to Microsoft, but just as an example, I think we'd find there'd be many, many differences. Much less similarity because different people are writing those code lines. So I think what you've clearly demonstrated is that the lines of code of the mushroom and the dog are, what, 17% similar, or whatever the number was. Yes, mushrooms and dogs are different. So they have different functions. So the code lines indicate what it has to do. There are probably no lines of code in a mushroom to tell it how to build a leg. But there are thousands and probably millions of lines of code in a dog to tell it how to build a leg. Mushrooms don't have legs, but that wouldn't mean the same designer didn't write the code. So anyway, let me ask you this question, Stefan. You don't have to answer if you don't want. You teach in a public school over there in your country. If you did, stop believing in evolution. If you did, become a young earth creationist like me. I know that's anathema to you, okay? But if you did, someday wake up and say, you know, there's a creator, and he wrote a book, and I'm going to believe it, and I'm going to be a young earth creationist, and I'm going to, when I teach my students on a topic where I can slip it in, I'm going to teach them creation and teach them the Bible is true. If that happened to you or someone else in your school system, would you lose your job?
Well, if I slip in biology in my math class, I think I would lose my job, whatever I taught them. I'm going to teach math in my math class. I'm not teaching biology. If I was to teach biology, I would have to stick to the curriculum.
But there are many biology teachers here in America who do not believe the curriculum, but they teach it. And then they tell the students, here's what the book says, here's what you have to learn for the test, but I don't believe it's true, and here's why. If that happened in your country, would that teacher be fired? Is the curriculum God? Do you ever depart from the curriculum in your math class? I taught math and science 15 years.
There are some I have some options to add whatever I think is appropriate, but of course within the topic of mathematics. Actually, we have a university teacher who actually is very keen on Michael Behe, you know, the guy that wrote Darwin's Black Box and Intelligent Design movie, one of the first to note intelligent design in the modern version. Well, intelligent design is more or less just creation in other clothes, but nevertheless, this modern version of creationism called intelligent design, Michael Behe started that movement, I think, 20 years ago or so.
Right. Yeah.
Writing this book, Darwin's Black Box, and there is, I happen to know, I have talked to him, a person in the University of Copenhagen who is very, very fond of that. I don't know if he used it in his teaching. I would think that he do not. It would not be looked at with nice eyes, but at least he is there. And as far as I know, Michael Behe still has his job at university where he has been for several decades. So not everybody is fired just because they don't stick to the evolutionary theory.
Well, Michael Behe would have tenure. They would have a difficult time firing him. Yeah. There have been hundreds, maybe even thousands of teachers who did not have tenure, who tried to teach something other than evolution, i.e., creation, and were fired. Have you seen the movie?
Well, actually, I think that's fair, because creation is not science.
So let me make sure I got your quote here. You think it is fair to fire a teacher who believes in creation if they teach in a public school?
Not for believing it, but for teaching something that is not science. In the science.
If a teacher in science class teaches something that is not science, it is fair to fire them. Is that your position?
You haven't, Mr. Hovind, you have not shown that evolution is a religion. I have to point out that to our audience, that you have not shown it. You have constantly said it, but you have not shown it. You have not shown that there is a definition of religion according to which biological evolution is a religion. You have not shown that.
Are there any teachings in your biology classes that cannot be supported by science, like observing a bacteria turn to anything other than a bacteria, but you have textbooks that show bacteria turn into whales?
Well, as I have
is that science? Is it science to say bacteria turned into whales over billions of years? Is that real science?
Well, as I have said several times, you don't need to have a direct observation of something that is a consequence of a scientific theory. If you can show that the predictions, a number of predictions that scientific theory comes up with, then you can argue that it is actually a scientific theory and that it should be taught. Just like 100 years ago or more, the theory that that matter was built of atoms was very, very far from being the result of a direct observation. It took several decades before anyone was anywhere near to directly observe an atom. But they had so many good indirect observations and theoretical considerations that showed that atoms must exist, and therefore was solid science that they existed.
I have some very good indirect observations that God exists. I talk to him many times a day. He changed my life radically. I've seen him change millions of people down through my lifetime and through history. There are probably billions of examples where God exists. So I have some very strong indirect observations. Plus, well, we'll talk about that next time. Thank you so much for doing this. We're way over time here. We'll do another one. You call Rhonda and schedule it. When you're ready, let me know. Okay?
Bye.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right, folks, if you want to get a hold of our ministry, drdino.com, come visit us in Lenox, Alabama. You can call me, 855-BIG-DINO. It's 244-3466, extension 3, and I'll answer the phone if I can. Thanks, brother. See you later. Bye.